Good evening, and welcome to the Atlanta Suburban Alumni Chapter's November edition of Mental Health Monday series. Our topic tonight is how to establish rest in your life, which is regular evaluation of self by taking time. Tonight on our panel, we are joined by two licensed professional counselors, Mr. Tremaine Graydon and Miss Nyasha Pace. Our session tonight will be moderated by Sora Nadia Barnett. So Sora Barnett, take the floor.
Thank you so much, Sora Jefferson. Welcome everyone to our Mental Health Mondays webinar series. I'm so happy to have our panelists join us for this timely session that is focused on rejuvenating and evaluating to rejuvenate ourselves, especially during the holiday season. I'm going to begin with sharing a few background information about our two panelists, and then we will get started. So we have Mr. Tremaine Graydon. He is a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia, and he holds over 10 years of counseling experience specializing in anxiety, depression, men issues, and couples counseling. He currently is in private practice, and we just welcome him and his expertise being here and offering a perspective from a Black male therapist point of view. Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Ms. Nyasha Pace. She is currently the Director of Psychiatry Programs and Outpatient Behavioral Health at the Grady Health System here in Atlanta, Georgia. She holds over 15 years of experience helping individuals from all socioeconomic levels in the metro Atlanta area, working in a variety of settings, including in-home, residential facilities for youth, residential centers for individuals dealing with addiction. She has private practice experience, community mental health clinic experience, providing therapy to children, adolescents, adults, and families. Thank you so much for both of you all taking time out of your precious day to share with us and share with our community. I want to begin with just setting the platform for us to have this discussion. We are a week away from Thanksgiving, and as we are entering the holiday season, this time of year can come with lots of happiness, lots of anxiety about seeing relatives or having time off from work or other responsibilities. But this time can also come with stress related to wanting to create the perfect environment for a family gathering, or grief in remembering those that are not with us anymore, or have joined the ancestors, as we would say in Wakanda. This time can bring loneliness. This time can also be traumatic if holidays just have not been the best for individuals. And so it really is a time to focus on physical health along with mental health, and sometimes and spiritual health. To start the conversation, as we were entering this intense period of the holiday season, looking at Christmas trees already going up, and we're still in the month of November, can you share with me some signs based on your experience working with clients where of someone who needs to take a stop, take a pause? What would be those signs that they need to take a moment?
I'll jump in. I think some of the signs that I've seen, and thanks so much for allowing me to be here. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to this evening. Some of the signs that I've seen is kind of twofold. Either someone is moving like in fast forward 100 miles an hour, trying to knock out so many tasks, and within the next few weeks or the next few months during the holiday season. Or then you have some people who are just kind of disengaged in slow motion. And if these, of course, we have some people that these are just natural personality type traits, but if it's outside their general personality, then that's a sign for me that something is not normal. So those are two of the things that I see the most common.
Yeah, I totally agree with Tremaine. And again, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I would say I agree 100%, anything out of the norm. But some other things you might look for, something that might jump out would be more irritable. Somebody who's normally just kind of even keeled, who's snapping at you. You ask them to do something, they're snapping. If and this can be something within yourself as well. If you are more tearful, a lot of times we aren't really connecting our head with our heart. And so you might not know why you're crying, but your body knows why you're crying. It's like clockwork around this time of year. This is when people either are doing well or they aren't.
Absolutely. So we are wanting to make sure we pay attention to our bodies. That sounds like that's important, along with paying attention to our normal behavior as well. Along those lines, and just so I let everyone that's listening, if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to enter them in our Q&A box that is here on our Zoom. If you are listening live on Facebook, please enter your questions in as a comment, and we will get those to our panelists as well. So in terms of looking at these signs, what if we're not able to see them for ourselves and we have people telling us things about ourselves?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I would say listen to the people that that are telling you. They know you better than you know yourself oftentimes. sometimes because they are the observers. So, you know, if somebody's saying, girl, what's wrong? Or, you know, bro, what's up? Answer the question or take some time to think about the question, because maybe nobody's asked you that lately. And you really need to think about, okay, you know, I have been a little short with people, or I've been MIA. People have been reaching out to me and I haven't felt like answering the phone. That is a real one also.
Yeah, agree, Niasha. I think, you know, we get this common question a lot. How are you doing? You know, and sometimes when we get that, when we see someone in the morning that we typically see all the time, we say, what's going on? How are you doing? That's the general one, right? But when somebody that we have a really solid relationship with, and they say, hey, how are you doing? If we're posed with that question, let's just be real. If we know that, especially if that's a trustworthy person, right? So if we know somebody being nosy, then, you know, keep your guard up. Please keep your boundaries up, please. But if it's somebody that definitely got love for you, that you know who cares for you, they're asking because they're concerned. They see something that's off. And so it's almost like a fire alarm that's going off. We need to respond. And so just respond in a way because you know that person cares for you.
Thank you. Absolutely. We have a couple of questions that have come through. Thank you so much, those that have provided questions. So I'm going to start with the first one that came through. Since we're going to be around family this holiday season, some for the first time since COVID, what would you suggest, or how would you suggest that we deal with avoiding arguments? So I'm assuming that, you know, this would be the normal engagement with certain relatives that may ruffle your feathers or just rubs you the wrong way. How would you suggest someone who feels like they're going to encounter some arguments with relatives?
So I think it's important to acknowledge that the question is a great question. And I wanted to highlight the part that says sometimes the first time since COVID, re-engaging with people. So it's not like, you know, not necessarily like Thanksgivings or Christmas dinners in the past. There is a heightened sense of stress. You're flooded with stress at work. You may be flooded with stress at home. And then you're flooded, if you watch the news, which I try not to, with all of the all the viruses going around, right? So it's like now I got to get back and go get back into a normal routine for the holidays. But I answer this by saying, you know, it takes two to tango, meaning you can't argue, one person can't argue with themselves. So choosing to establish healthy boundaries. If there is a person in the family, which we all have, who knows how to push those buttons, do not engage. That is setting a healthy boundary. You don't have to engage, you know, but that takes some self-care, some self-reflection, and choosing to step back. That's an example of a boundary. Choosing to, you know, greet them, be cordial, but you don't have to go there with them.
Tremaine, any suggestions as well?
Yes, indeed. I'm showing the Oscars some love on that. One more thing I want to add: know your players. Like, I mean, even though, and respectfully, it definitely has been some time since a lot of us have been in the same room. But go ahead and brief yourself on who's going to be there. If Uncle Jim is going to be there, or Cousin Tremaine is going to be there, and you know they have a history of acting out or pushing your buttons, go ahead and prepare yourself. Do not expect for them to have changed within the last 3 years. Now, they may have. Let's expect the best, right? But I already know. So we can't control Cousin Tremaine. We can't control Uncle such and such. But we can operate in the space of self-control. When Thanksgiving is over, when Christmas is over, when New Year's is over, we want to look back and say, man, if I look back at my behavior, what would I say? If I had to grade myself, I want to give myself straight A's. You see what I'm saying? And that's not necessarily saying that you had to shut down and close your mouth. Do what you need to do to maintain your standard. I think that's one more thing I'd like to add. So do what you need to do to maintain your standard.
Thank you so much. You know, I have encountered this as well in my family. And one of the, I call it a strategy, things that I've done, which is I will, I don't want to be rude, right? So I will speak to the person, say hello, but my next move is to walk away immediately. So that kind of goes into don't give the other person the opportunity to engage with you too long. So I'll immediately walk away and, say, "Ooh, let me go find a potato salad," or, "Oh, let me go speak to such and such." I will hello, and then I'm going somewhere else. So thank you so much. We have another question, and this kind of came up as well in terms of being under stress. So a lot of us may be in positions or work for companies or agencies or organizations where we are understaffed, and it is very, very stressful. So the question is, how can we de-stress when that weight of the responsibility is at work, it's waiting for us to get there, it's pulling on us when we're trying to leave? What are some things that we can do to de-stress from a work environment where there's a lack of staffing, lack of support, and we're just overwhelmed?
I think and in our times today, that's definitely real. I mean, sometimes it's easy to carry work or even away from work, especially if we've having to work harder than we have, in time past. I would say for me, it's prioritizing. When I'm not only with family at home or even doing some of these holiday events, at the end of the day, when we retire or when we walk away from our job, whenever that time is, very rarely are we going to ever say, "I wish I would have worked more," or "I wish I would have done more." You know what I mean? I wish I would have filled out one more spreadsheet. At the end of the day, it's prioritizing like what's important in my life. Are my kids the most important? Is my spouse the most important? Is my mom, dad? We need to put more thought time into what's most important. Now, listen, I'm not telling people say run and go quit your job. Please don't do that. I'm for employment. Listen, get the money now. Get all the money you can get. But at the end of the day, saying, what do I want my life to be to me? What's the most meaningful part of life for me? It's all about redirecting those thoughts. That does take a lot of effort. That does take a lot of energy. I can hear people in the background saying, "But that's hard." Indeed, it is hard at first. But the more and more we train ourselves to say, "Look, I need to focus on what's important for me and what my life is all about." And I think that will help bring some balance.
That question, I was like, oh, yes, especially especially about the lack of staffing. That is a whole, you read about the great resignation. Now there's quiet quitting. And I'm like, when are people coming back to work? And what are you doing? But I would say, I certainly agree with everything Tremaine said. And I'll piggyback on the fact that it is hard work to learn a new skill. But it gets easier. It gets easier to do what's best for you. And then it becomes more difficult to go back to the old ways with practice. For those who are leaving the house, going to work, I know some people are still working from home. If you're leaving from work, leaving and going to work, taking advantage of those transitions. So on your way to work, if you drop the kids off, the time from when you don't have the kids in the car, you can't count it when you have kids in the car. So from the time you drop them off to the time you get to work, that's a transition. That's a time to kind of get your mind right, play your music, do something for you, whatever makes you feel good. I blast my music in the morning or I call a friend. Your lunch breaks, take your lunch break, move away from your desk. That also applies to people working from home. And then when you are getting off of work, taking that transition period. When the world shut down and, people lost their routines, stress levels went up because there was no clear delineation between work and home. If you are working from home, you need to add those transitions back in if you have not already. Those transitions are very important. Transitions at home could look like going outside, just eating your lunch outside. There is something about being outside, or changing your scenery, changing rooms. Try not to work in your bedroom if you can help it. But definitely adding those transitions back in will help with de-stressing.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you pointed out the transition part is important. I do know some people that work from home and they have physically had to leave their space and go take their lunch somewhere else. Even they sit out on their porch or sit out on, on the deck or wherever they get away. And that has shown to be helpful. We have another question. Just shifting gears, going back to family. Any suggestions on how to blend or merge a blended family, especially during the holidays, which can be anxiety provoking? If you have two different families and they may have done two different things for Thanksgiving, and here we are a week out, and here we are finally almost having a normal holiday Thanksgiving time frame. What can parents do, or loved ones or caregivers do, to try to make the blended family experience easier?
I will jump in and say, merging families is not easy, and you think about even when you're just getting married or living together, merging lives is difficult. And then when you have a whole family to merge, that becomes even more difficult. So I am a strong proponent of family counseling. Oftentimes the kids are not factored into the equation. And, we think we're taking care of the kids, we're doing the best we can, but their mental health is not necessarily being factored in. And I think that family therapy can help with that. For the holidays coming up, tips on how to create new experiences. I think that's just the conversation you have to have. Is we're coming from two different families. These were our customs, our traditions in our previous households. Let's make something new together. Finding a way to honor both the past and the present.
Jermaine, anything?
Yeah, I follow up on that.
Okay.
Excuse me. I like that, the piece of communication is key. And I think we do have to definitely honor like both sides of it. Like what has been important, throughout my life, what has been important throughout your life. And one of the things about communication is that it opens things up and it helps to eliminate assumptions. And if we're operating in the place of assumption, we're operating at the lowest level of knowledge. And you all know, I will speak for me. I've had some of the worst arguments. A therapist does have arguments. Yes, it happens. It happens. Happens more often than I wanted to be quite honest. But but the heart of the times when I've had some of the toughest arguments is when Tremaine has made assumptions. And when we talk about blended families, I like to look at it like this: like what would look good for you? What would be a win for you during this holiday season? What would be a win for me during this holiday season? Let's talk about it in advance. So if something happens, we're not assuming like, oh, but this is what I thought. Well, this is what I thought. Let's go ahead and put it out there ahead of time as much as we can, right? It's going to be some things that may blindside us, but as much as we can. And I also encourage and include the kids as much as you can too, so everybody will feel a part of what's going on. At the end of the day, it's all about family. So most important.
Thank you. Thank you. So, really incorporating the children in deciding what are some things that, as a blended family coming together, that can be done to both honor the past and also create something new for the future. I love that. Our next question related to family, for our panelists is, in taking care of ourselves and in setting boundaries, is it okay to not visit families during the holiday?
Oh, can I jump on that one?
Yes.
I felt that. I feel seen. I feel seen in the chat. Um, so this year, we are leaving town. I normally host. My family normally hosts. And by me having a family full of guys, I tend to be the hostess. And so that means everything falls pretty much on me. And I come from a family of guys, so I have two brothers. My mom is no longer cooking anymore because she wants me to cook, and my dad doesn't cook. So all guys, and I'm the host. I have decided that we are leaving town. So everybody said, well, where are we going to eat? Not my problem. So yes, all that to say, I think that it is definitely okay and necessary to opt out sometimes. All the time, you kind of want to watch that and figure out, why am I opting out? Is there something deeper than that? But sometimes we just need to take a step away.
Mhm. Absolutely. And congratulations to you to saying, you know what, this ain't the year, y'all.
It's
We're
not-
gonna do something new.
Listen, we don't have a staff. We don't have, I need for one area of my life not to be stressful. So yeah.
Exactly. Great. Tremaine, any suggestions on,
Sometimes,
being secure and taking our self-care and setting boundaries and just saying, I'm not gonna be around my family.
yeah, it's nothing wrong with that. Take some time for you. If that's on your heart to take some time for you, you got the right to look out for you. I'm telling you, it's nothing wrong with that. And I do want to say this too. With making that move, there will be people who try to guilt you. There will
Yes.
be people that try to violate those boundaries. But look, it's all right. It's okay. There will be another time. At the end of the day, if you feel that I need to create some space for me, honor that space. And anybody who violates that space or attempts to violate that space is not operating in the space of love. They're not. They're not. Not that they don't love you, but in that moment, they're not operating in the space of love. So you got the right to, man, do what's best for you. Tell you, have a good time. I'm about to go. I'm about to find out whether y'all should go, and I'm about to get me and my family. We're gonna follow. This sounds fun. I don't know what we're gonna eat either, but we're gonna do it big. Let's do it.
Thank you. And I like that advocating for yourself is putting yourself first as a priority. And you don't have to explain that to anybody. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that our guests here as well appreciate that. So our next question has to do continuing with self-care and taking time to step away. What would be some examples or some tips to step away to focus on self-care? What could some of those action behaviors be? And
I'm gonna say this first.
I'm going to post a couple of links in the chat regarding that.
Self-care, I want to mention that.
Okay, go ahead, Tremaine. Sorry.
All right, I'll jump in. One of the things I do want to mention is with self-care, we can't expect it just to happen. We do have to schedule it to happen. I mean, we think about everything that we completed today. The things that we completed today, there may not have been a written schedule on it, so we kind of made it happen. And so when I would just speak from that aspect of self-care, don't continue to put it off. If you know you need it, if we're already thinking about it, that's a sign I need it. Go ahead and schedule it. Just like anything else. Make it happen, put it on the calendar, because we need that time to reboot. We need that time to recharge. We need that time to help us be out there.
Yeah, I will say I agree. Scheduling it just like we schedule everything else. But also, this is the hardest part, not allowing something else to override that time that you've blocked on your calendar. So if from 5 to 7 every other day is my time, that is my time. And how do I establish that boundary? I say no. Am I busy? Yes. I might be busy doing absolutely nothing, but that is what I need to be doing. And that is part of self-care. I think feeling okay with making yourself a priority. There's the example that we hear a lot in our community, in the therapist world, about putting your oxygen mask on first. If you don't have anything left to give, how can you save the other people? How can you take care of the other people? And so you have to be selfish, which is good. It's a good thing to be a little selfish. Take care of yourself. Do the things that you enjoy doing. If you're not sure what you enjoy doing, blocking off that time, whether it's once a month, however frequently you need it, and exploring something new. Because what we enjoyed pre-kids or pre-partner or pre-whatever, what we enjoyed in college, in high school, may not be what we enjoy now. So getting reconnected with yourself, being curious about yourself, being curious as to what you enjoy now, what makes you feel good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have uploaded in the chat a couple of links from Positive Psychology related to a self-care checkup, self-care worksheets, and so please feel free to utilize those links as well. So the key is to make yourself a priority, and you guard that or protect that time for yourself, no matter what it is that you decide to do. And to learn more about yourself, figure out what are those things you enjoy. Thank you so much. We have another question that came through in reference to wanting to make our own family, our significant other's family happy. We come from this question is, we come from two different states, very far from each other. And we currently want to know if there are any tips or suggestions related to navigating the pressure to make both families happy. And how do we decide who to visit for what holiday? So this can come up with blended families. This can come up with, in any sort of, any friends, it could be anything. So how do we decide who to make happy, and who do we visit first?
Yep, I felt that one too. You can't make anyone happy. That's just the reality of it. Focus on what is within your control. You do not have the control to impact others' emotions. If they're happy, they're happy. If they're not, it's not your fault. I think it is having a discussion with your family, your primary unit, who you live with, having that discussion about what works for you all. If your significant other is nostalgic about, I don't know, Thanksgiving, and you're nostalgic about Christmas, or you don't care either way, you just want there to be less bickering, you just want there to be the least amount of stress. I think deciding what's best for you all as to who you all visit. It is difficult, certainly, when you have to travel and move the family around. But I guess applying that lens of, I'm not responsible for the happiness of others. I want to go and celebrate and fellowship with my family, but it is not my responsibility to make anyone happy. So removing that pressure, I think, might be a little bit easier when trying to navigate how you move. Maybe you move, here based off weather, instead of trying to figure out who's going to be happy if I go here first or here second.
Anything to add, Tremaine?
Yeah, I think this is a really, really such a real question. It hits home for me. I think the power of negotiation is really critical during these type decisions, especially if someone's out of state. Really, they don't even have to be out of state. They could be right down the street. I think it's like negotiation is sometimes, people interpret that like somebody loses, but I believe in negotiation, everybody can win. And so when we're making decisions, who should we spend most time with? Who should we spend less time with? It's a lot of different things that have to kind of be analyzed. But it's like, let's get together and really hash this out. Let's talk it out and say what's going to be a win for us. And I'm saying us, that could be with your partner, that could be, your immediate, the people who are involved in the decision. Like, what's going to be, who needs us the most, as far as that you may have some older parents, or you may have some cousins who don't come in town but every 5 years. So you may want to spend more time with them. You got somebody who's right down the street that you can see every day of the year, then you may can see them a little bit less. So it's all about balance and negotiation, because at the end of the day, it's about peace for you and your family at home. We want peace at home. And so ultimately, is what can we compromise and what can we be on the same thing?
Thank you so much. This next question is very important for those that can be experiencing some stress or depression during the holidays. Being single during the holidays, and either this is a time where you see commercials where people are, couples are together, families are together. I mean, Publix has a commercial, Walmart has these family oriented commercials. And if you're single, how that can reinforce maybe that something is wrong with you, or maybe relatives say things. Any suggestion on those that may find it overwhelming to be single during the holidays?
It is definitely difficult to watch TV. Like you said, the commercials are so, so they connect with you, especially Publix commercials. Stay away from Lifetime and Hallmark, but seriously, I think that one, depending on why you're single, because it could be a new relationship ended or a relationship newly ended. And we haven't had a chance to process that. If you need therapy, that is not a bad thing. Sometimes we need someone who is objective to talk it out with, and work through those things. But also, I always encourage my clients to connect with your support system. Who are your friends? Who are, do you have family? Maybe you've got a cousin who's like your best friend, or an aunt, or your parent. Contacting them and actually being honest with them. I think we often feel like we have to put on a facade, that we should be happy at this time. But a lot of people are not happy. That is the reality of it. And that's okay. It is okay to not be okay. But I think recognizing you're not okay and then reaching out for help, utilizing that support system. If somebody's calling you, your girlfriend or whoever, your guy friend, hey, you want to go meet up, to whatever, answer the phone. And sometimes it's really hard when that depression sets in to actually pick up the phone, even if somebody's reaching out to you. Answer the phone or pick up the phone and call somebody.
Thank you. Anything you want to add, Tremaine, maybe as it relates to men being single during the holidays?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, this is one of the conversations that men that we have, but it's gonna be with that really, really close dude. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be something that we broadcast, just straight up with you. So one of the things I want to say, just from a male perspective, is sometimes we can compromise standards when it comes to being lonely during holidays, being, we're reflecting on past decisions. Man, I know I messed that relationship up. Man, now she's with this guy, and man, that could have been me. You know what I mean? Or why am I still single at this time? So the heart of that I tell people is this: always see your beauty, always see your value, always see the honor that you have for yourself, regardless of what the circumstances are. Always see that. And do not make a decision on emotion. Please don't do that. Please don't do that, because that can cost us some money and some time and it would take us some places that we do not want to be. So if we focus as much as we can on the value within, it's going to be uncomfortable. It may be tight. It may be times of loneliness, but I know who I am, and I know this will not be my place of permanency. No, it won't. Even if we made past mistakes, I've forgiven myself, working through forgiving myself. If we're not working through forgiving ourselves, as Nyasha mentioned, definitely therapy will be, of course, we're advocates for it because we see the healing through it. You know what I mean? But don't allow temporary emotions to make decisions on just a small amount of space and time. And I think as men, that sometimes we do that. We do.
Okay. Wonderful. Now, in terms of, focusing on getting to know ourselves, making sure we take time for ourselves, how do we set boundaries? How do we set boundaries with our family? How do we set boundaries maybe, with our friends? What does that look like in protecting the time that we need for ourselves and setting those boundaries?
So I will say, definitely saying no when you cannot do something, or don't have, and when I say you can't do it, you might have the time, but you don't have the mental capacity to take care of this. Like if we've all had that thought, if one more thing comes my way, I'm just gonna lose it. Like
Yeah.
that is a warning sign that we need to listen to.
Yeah.
Speaking of the holidays and aging parents and, additional responsibilities, I think it's important to, when you can, if there is a support system, let's say you have siblings or cousins in the area, family members, family friends who are like family. If you are caring for someone and now you've got the additional stress of hosting the holidays or even navigating through the holidays, raise our hand. I know Black women are the worst
Yes.
at raising our hands, saying,
Yeah.
I need help, because we have been given so much responsibility and we typically, rise to the challenge. That's not necessarily a good thing. We don't have to do that anymore. We can put some things down. We don't have to own everything. So, because by history, things have been given to us, we have to figure out, and this is for everyone, we have to figure out what we can put down. What is just what are some bad habits that have just been passed along? It may have been necessary in the past, but in present day, is it really necessary? Should I really own this? That is part of setting a boundary also.
Absolutely.
To add to that, I would say now, you can't do this with everyone. Some things I'm gonna recommend here, but especially what I consider inner circle, people that you know that have you in their best interest, that you contact, people that you trust. If you're establishing a boundary or reestablishing a boundary, I always say with people who you know have your best interest, let them know, hey, I'm recommitting to this in my life. I'm recommitted to going back to school. I'm recommitted to a skill. I'm recommitted to educating myself. I'm recommitted to exercising. I'm recommitted to changing my diet. And when we do that, with people in your inner circle, they will have an understanding like, okay, I may not want to take Tremaine to the rib shack today because I know he want to cut back on ribs. He want to, he's working on something. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes if we don't speak our boundaries, then people that we love will put us in places that actually will compromise our boundaries. So with people that we trust, that we know that's going to support our goals, let some of these folks know. So not only will they help us, but also they will know if we're creating distance. Because sometimes if we create distance for certain things and they have been involved in our life with these particular areas, then they may feel uncomfortable, like, what? Why are you changing? Is it me? What's going on? But I'm a big proponent of being forthcoming about your boundaries with people who do you know have your best interest.
Thank you. Wonderful. It definitely, for those that love us and want the best for us, that conversation can probably be very healthy for us to continue to instill. The boundaries are important. How do we deal with disrespectful people? That we set the boundary, we in a nice way, hey, I'm going to say no to that. Thank you for considering me. I appreciate it, but I'm going to have to say no. But they keep pushing and they don't respect the no. They don't respect us saying, I'm going to recommit to doing this, or I'm going to, I'm trying to do something different for myself. What do we do then? Do we cuss them out?
No.
So, okay. Okay.
We do not cuss them out, but we
right.
do we do reinforce our no. Sometimes it takes having a difficult conversation. Sometimes we've been a little uncomfortable with that no. So it was like a no.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't they weren't really sure if it was a no or like a hard no, Having difficult conversations, I think, is so freeing. It's anxiety provoking when you think about it, because our imagination is way more creative than what actually happens. So if you have a difficult conversation and you've been, I haven't been sleeping because I'm about to have this conversation with Aunt Betty or whoever, about I just can't do this year. But then when I actually have the conversation, it goes much more smoothly. It might not be great, but it's not what we imagined. Our imagination is more creative than reality. But continuing to reinforce that, and if we need to have a conversation, have a conversation.
Yeah. Tremaine?
Yeah, but this one right here, it gets me a little bit. So now this may be on the extreme side, but we have to really kind of weigh this one out, right? And so if I look at it like if someone is consistently violating our boundaries and they keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, I say, you know what? I may need to investigate this relationship. Like, who is this person? What really is their intention? You know what I mean? Is this person, what are they doing? You know what I mean? Because you've heard me, this is kind of like a theme. So the people who are closest to us influence our life. You know what I mean? So if someone who is pushing me and trying to push me, and I know I don't want to go in that direction, I'm going to change the channel. You will no longer be in my life, at least for a season. You know what I mean? Now that may be tougher with people like relatives. Some of them we just can't get rid of, right? But we can create distance. We can definitely create distance. So I look at it kind of like that too. So if somebody's consistently violating boundaries that we have talked to them about, that we reestablished and been firm on, no, I'm taking this relationship. I mean, what really are you trying to do to me at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Might be a timeout. Like, hey, we gonna have to not connect for a little bit because I need you to respect what I'm saying. Absolutely, absolutely. In reference to family and that, or just the idea of holidays being draining, um, is it okay to not visit your family during the holidays, especially if they don't want to visit you? There's no reciprocal um behaviors towards visiting you, but the holidays, oh, you're expected to come home, you expected to be at your mom's house or come to your dad's house or go to grandma's house, but no one is actually coming to visit you. Is it okay to say no, I'm good?
Absolutely. I honestly think this is where the Friendsgivings come in to
Yeah.
play, because sometimes you just rather be with your friends who feel like family. I think it's okay. Again, if it's all the time, it's something you kind of want to explore. But here and there, absolutely. The holidays can be draining, family can be draining. And if you're inviting people, to come visit you, then and they're not acting on it, then hey, I'm gonna hang out with these folks over here this year. And that is okay.
Kind of
Yeah,
going where your
100%
cup is
agree
getting
with
filled.
Absolutely.
Tremaine, I'm sorry, you were saying something.
that. You said a lot with what you just said, like going where your cup is being filled. I'm good with that. No further
Okay.
comment on that
Okay.
one.
Okay. We have a question about access to mental health resources for those that have insurance, those that don't have insurance to cover mental health resources. What are some ideas or suggestions on how someone could engage in mental health services? And while you all are answering that, I'm going to put some links in the chat.
Yep. First and foremost, all of the counties provide services to individuals who are uninsured. So community service boards, if you are not in Fulton County has its own behavioral health services. And if you are uninsured, you get the same care that anybody who has insurance would get. But if you Google community service boards, if you're in DeKalb County, for example, they have DeKalb Community Service Board. Cobb has one. Also private practices I know are kind of many places you might call might be full, but there are places that are sometimes offer fee for service, so you can pay out of pocket. Sometimes some places will offer sliding scales. I think it's also important to remember you have to prioritize yourself. So some places will not offer sliding scales, and that's okay. But if that means, I miss a hair appointment or I miss something else that's important to me, I have to prioritize that and figuring out how I can balance the two.
You just got real with that.
I know, girl.
You just got real with that, because sometimes these nails need to be done.
You might need to skip a session.
You're right. Okay. Tremaine.
All those points that Nyasha made are definitely relevant, no doubt about that. I would just say too, just with just overall access, I just want to add a little piece on this. If someone says that they are full, if someone says it may take a week or 2 weeks to get in, please do not lose heart. Do not be discouraged. Like, your time will come. It will come, and it will be definitely well worth the wait. So I would say that as a backside of that point, keep fighting, because at the end of the day, you're fighting for yourself. You're fighting for your health. That's what it is. And once the door opens, the door is open. You know what I mean? And it's unlimited opportunity. And it just, once that therapeutic relationship is started and you're with the person that's right for you, man, I'm telling you, life changes. It really does.
And for those that are looking in the chat, I've added a couple links. One on Psychology Today is where you can go to find a therapist. There's a link, freementalhealth.us is a link that you can go to as well. Boris L. Henson Foundation, which is Taraji P. Henson's organization that supports mental health. And there's a link for free services in your area, along with therapy for Black men and therapy for Black girls as well. If you have insurance, you can, and you want to use your insurance just like you use your insurance for your physical health, you can access your insurance, whether through your login or call the number that's on the card in relation to getting connected with in-network therapists in your area. So those are just a few ways, along with what was provided. So community service boards, along with continuing to advocate for yourself. So even if you reach out and they're not able to take you right now, find someone else. Just like if you need a physical, you're not going to wait until the doctor's able to see you. You're going to see if you can get in with another doctor. So let's take that same perspective when it comes to mental health. And I think what I hope also came across today is the more that you learn about yourself, you can probably become proactive in seeking out help before it gets too late, right? So we don't want to encourage you to be in a crisis to get help. But if you have that thought, like, maybe I need to see a therapist, this might be the time to actually make an appointment. And even if it's a few weeks out, in the moment, that would work for you versus waiting until you're in a crisis situation. We have another question that came through the chat in reference to keeping ourselves accountable. How do we keep ourselves accountable to ourselves? When we say we have these boundaries and we say we're going to commit to pouring into ourselves, just like we pour into other people and other things in our lives, what are some things that we can do to be accountable to us?
So I will go back to what Tremaine said about scheduling yourself. I think during those times where you're scheduling yourself, let's say you're scheduling a weekly check-in with yourself. Oftentimes we're just on autopilot. So our head doesn't connect with our body. Doing an inventory which for me just kind of looks like I'm sitting still. And then I'm just kind of figuring out from top to bottom or bottom to top, all the way down to my toes. Does anything hurt? Does anything feel tense? Does anything feel weird? And then, yes, probably some stress going on in my neck. What's that coming from? So doing an inventory. Okay, what did I do that week that may have caused that? Or what did I do that day that may have contributed to that? I think it's important to really check in with yourself. Another activity that I often enjoy giving to others as an assignment is at the end of the day, so maybe before bed or whenever, going back through what am I proud of? What did I accomplish? And I don't mean, I got a gold star at work, or I got, I don't know, some accolade or whatever. I'm talking about the little things. Like I was able to eat outside. I took a walk around, my building for the day, or whatever. Something, what are you proud of? What did you accomplish? It kind of helps you to go through and pay attention to make sure you are keeping yourself accountable, and also recognizing the small wins, because sometimes we think we haven't been keeping ourselves accountable, and we actually are doing what we said we would do.
Thank you. Tremaine?
Yeah, also, I think that kind of holding ourselves accountable, one of the things that, in addition to what Yasha shared, is seeing where you're going. If I want to, whatever the goal may be, if I want to change my diet, see where you're going. Like, why do I want to do that? How will I look then? Use, as Nyasha mentioned, imagination. Use our mind to, like, what do I see myself being? Because oftentimes when we are not holding ourselves accountable, it's because thoughts are distracting us. There is some type of thought that came in our mind and distracted us from the picture that we want to see. And so envision yourself exactly what you want to see. Envision yourself better than what you want to accomplish. And so if we redirect that thought toward the picture or the image that we want to see, in most cases, it will help us to get out of that, some people say rut, or that tough space. If it's hard to imagine yourself in that space, look at a picture, look at somebody, look at somebody who's actively doing something similar to your goal, and that will propel you to go out there and do something different.
Tremaine, when you mentioned about the diet, the one thing I can think about is how difficult it is for me during this time of year to not have the foods that I enjoy, and to really think about, I love cornbread dressing. I love the turkey and mac and cheese, and, wanting to stick to and be accountable to myself with eating healthier. Do we have any tips on, what's some strategies I can take with me before I go to that table, that dinner table, and everything is spread out, and then people are encouraging you to eat everything? How do we say no in that moment? I feel like that's just really taunting me, because they're gonna make what I love.
Yeah. I got you. You've been, listen, that's real life. So let me share this. I think the area of, I've mentioned diet as an example several times because it's common for a lot of us. And diet for me, like I'm a big exercise junkie. Like I read the back of everything. If I'm shopping, if you all ever see me in the grocery store and I'm in the middle aisles, I'm looking at a can, I'm looking at a glass and reading what's in it, right? Because I gotta value what's going in me. But I have not always been that way. I haven't. And so what I just shared about using that imagination, I remember, like, man, I know what I want my body to look like. And I was far from that. And I still have desires for my body to look better. So I'm like, I gotta look past the dressing and see what I'm gonna look like in July of 2023. Because when I hit the beach, I'm gonna be the first one with my shirt on. And then that's the type of thing you gotta look at, like, look past that date. Because once we take that sweet in, that's the best it's gonna get. That literally is the best it's going to get. But really creating that lasting image, or that whatever you're trying to pursue, that is the whole process of getting there, looking at that win, as Nyasha mentioned, that is more fulfilling, and that will carry us through those tough moments. So looking at, hey, if I take the sweet potato pie down, now you can do it in moderation. Now, I'm not against sweet potato pie, but do yourself good now, but don't do yourself bad. You know? But it's, think about where I want to be long term and how I'm going to look in 3 months, in 2 months, in 1 month, if I make the right decision right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. You know, we have talked about a lot here tonight. And, you know, before I get to the last 2 questions that I have, I want to just kind of recap. We talked about listening to your body, making sure that you take time to find out what's important to you, what makes you happy, and what rejuvenates you. And with practice, using your implementing boundaries and putting yourself first. With practice, that's going to be easier, making sure that we are using our transition periods to our advantage, taking time to step away, make sure you have lunch and not work through your lunch. Seek out connections with people that make you happy. Tremaine, you said something that I wrote down. When you operate in a space of assumptions, you're operating in a space of the lowest level of, was it functioning? It was something you said, and I said that was powerful in terms of avoiding assumptions.
Yeah, it's operating the lowest level of knowledge when we're making
of knowledge. Yes, yes. Thank you. In all of this, how can we give ourselves grace? When I go to the table next Thursday, Tremaine, and I load my plate up, and probably as I'm eating it, I'm going to remember what you're saying to me, but I'm still going to eat it. How do I avoid beating myself up? Because I'm going to fall.
And I think that being real, we all are going, at some point, we all are going to stumble in some way or another, but we don't have to be scarred. You know what I mean? Just because if we stumble, it doesn't, we may lose our balance, but we recover. But don't stay in the moment where we lost our balance. There's so many more steps that we have to take in life to get where we're going. And the reality is, if I'm walking and I stumble, I'm actually getting to the destination faster. You see what I'm saying? You know, it may be embarrassing. I may be like, oh, I hate that moment, but my pace is accelerated. So look at it like, you know, I stumbled, but I'm going to use this as a learning opportunity for me to get there faster. There is no value in resting in guilt and condemnation and beating ourselves. There is absolutely zero value in that. And so we have to say, look, you and I are, our lives are worth so much. We can't spend time condemning ourselves, feeling guilty, and just abiding in those places. We have to continue to move forward. We have to be our best self.
I'll add to that. We have to be aware of those thoughts. So Nadia, as we're taking that bite, because I'm going to take a bite. It's being aware of that thought that comes like, oh crap. And then it snowballs, right? And we become our toughest critic. It's those thoughts that keep us from progressing, right? It's not the actual, I stumbled, to Tremaine's point. It is the thoughts that keep us where we are. And so applying the grace would look like, okay, Nadia, what would you tell your best friend? What would you tell somebody that you loved if you heard their thoughts and their thoughts were beating up on themselves? Would you beat up on yourself if you were them? So kind of apply, if you're unable to give yourself that grace, then act like you are talking to somebody else. You know, if you're not able to separate yourself from and be objective. And that's usually helpful because we are our toughest critic, but we're so kind and lenient with everyone else, which is why we have no boundaries, you know. But that grace that you're applying to everybody else, you deserve it too.
Thank you so much. The last question I'm going to ask, and it's in reference to in emergency situation. If we are, we've talked about scenarios where we can be prepared for those relatives that may say something, or just be okay with not attending family functions, or any function that you don't feel comfortable attending. You want to protect your peace. But what if we find ourselves or someone else in a situation where they are, the stress has overcome them, where they may have thoughts and they may be sharing things that are completely unusual, but are causing, raising a lot of red flags for us, or we find ourselves in the midst of emotions and we absolutely 100% need to get help in the moment. What can we do in that moment, either to help ourselves or to help someone else? We talked about the holidays not being the best for a lot of people, and that can include people that have thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore, or thoughts of, you know, other, unhealthy things. So what can we do in those moments that could be helpful to someone else or even ourselves?
I would say first and foremost, take them seriously. Do not dismiss them. And that means if someone else is having those thoughts and expressing them to you, or if you are having those thoughts, do not dismiss those thoughts. Do not dismiss the other person who has been vulnerable enough to share with you, because sometimes you are the only person that might get that information. Nationwide, there has been a rollout of a 988 number, which is very similar to 911. Right in Georgia, it is actually funneled through or staffed by the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. And the goal for the 988 number is, one, to be easily accessible, because you can remember that, but you can remember the suicide helpline and the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. It's easier to remember than a 1-800 number. And the goal for that crisis line is to connect the right resources with the individual. So police involvement is not always needed, So there it's staffed by clinicians, licensed professional counselors, social workers, marriage and family therapists, who will assess the situation and determine what resources need to, if somebody needs to come out to the house. Sometimes you just need to talk to somebody over the phone. And that's helpful as well. But yeah, writing that number down, the 988, it will connect you to all of the resources. Additionally, I think making sure that if you're having those thoughts, talking to someone, some of the warning signs that you might want to look for people around you might be, as Nadia pointed out, a change in how they're presenting, how they are talking to you. But one that's really subtle is people giving away their belongings. One that is often missed because, they may give something to everybody, one thing instead of all of their belongings to one person. So it's really easy if your cousin Timmy is giving you his Xbox and he loves the Xbox, just checking in with him. That doesn't mean he wants to do anything, but just checking in with him.
Thank you, Tremaine.
In addition, I would say, if someone is at any point in time mentioned that you see a change in behavior that's like, it's really got your attention, there's nothing wrong with asking the question, hey, I'm seeing some different behavior. You seem sad, being depressed. Are you thinking about ending your life? Are you having any of these thoughts? Most people are so scared to ask the question because the myth is out. If I ask the question, it's going to promote the person to go forward and do it. That's not evidence-based. That is a myth and it's not true. And so there's nothing wrong with asking the question. And if the person says, you know, I've had those thoughts, I'm having them now, please stay with that person. Please stay with that person and get the person connected to some resources, not only as Yasha mentioned. So one of the things is this is not something that we can just sleep on and say, you know what, it'll be all right in the morning. No, we got to make it right now. We got to make it right now. And oftentimes, when someone is in that place, they have tunnel vision, and so they have totally lost the peripheral aspect of their vision, so they don't see the other options. But if we're close to that person, if we're there with that person, we help them to see that there are other options and that your life is meaningful. And so just be, if anyone is ever in that space, consider yourself to be the right person for the moment, and don't disqualify yourself for the moment. You are the right person in that moment.
I also want to just in light of, where we are and things that are happening, add on to that if someone is threatening to harm someone else, harm or kill someone else, asking that question, and again, not dismissing those comments. If you are having those thoughts, if someone else is sharing those with you, I know we talk a lot of smack, but it's okay to just follow up and say, you serious? You really having those thoughts? Because we never know. That might be the one time that somebody shares something with that one person, and you might be the one person.
Great. Thank you so much. I think I would also add that if you are currently in treatment during this holiday season, remain compliant in treatment, whatever that is for you. It's going to be important to, continue with your therapy services, or if you're taking medication, make sure that you're doing your part to continue to take care of yourself during the holiday as well. We put the 988 in the chat. In addition to, there is a government mental health link that I've added as well, with regards to getting immediate help. So that has been added in the chat box as well. So thank you so much for both of you for sharing about what to do in the event of a risk or a urgent situation. I will say that, or let me ask, would the emergency room be an option as well?
It is an option, absolutely, because there are no urgent care facilities that I'm aware of in Georgia. However, as you know, the emergency rooms are inundated with many, many, many people. So it is certainly a resource. If someone is in imminent danger of harming themselves or others, absolutely go to the emergency room. But certainly use those resources that have been put in the chat, because not everything warrants an emergency evaluation, but sometimes it does warrant an emergency intervention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all of the expertise and knowledge you all have shared with us tonight. I believe we have addressed all of the questions that have come through from our attendees here this evening. Those of you that are attempting to do our evaluation form, we are updating that as well, and we will post that shortly. In the meantime, we have our the chair of the Physical and Mental Health Committee for the chapter, Sora Rashawn Jefferson, will share with us a last closing message, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nadia. It's always a pleasure. I love you moderating these because you just make it so great and interactive. And thank you both to Tremaine and Ayasha. We really appreciate the conversation. It's been great. I know I haven't been on camera, but I've been doing double duty, monitoring the question and answer. And thank you to everybody for your questions. I think this was a great discussion, as always. I know a lot of us, in the healthcare field, psychologists, counselors, everybody is just kind of overwhelmed and stressed, and everybody is trying to tap into self-care right now and taking care of themselves. And, sometimes that means just saying no. And sometimes, saying yes and saying no and the opposite, so I think this conversation is, overdue, and it's needed. Um, we talked about holiday plans, and we were talking about that before the session started, and we're just laying low, and it's okay. And everybody just be unapologetic with your choices and your decisions, because those truly are healthy boundaries, that you're setting for yourself, and you have to, protect your peace at all costs. So I thank you again. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We hope that if we do this again, that you'll come back and drop some knowledge on us again, and we can't thank you enough. So for all of our audience, we do our Mental Health Monday series every other month now. So we will be back in January with another exciting topic. And until then, we just want everybody to have a safe holiday, protect your peace, be unapologetic, just put yourself first. And as always, we have, resources our on our social media page, our Atlanta Suburban Alumni Chapter page. We have videos. These videos are available on YouTube, and you can watch them as many times as you need to. They have a lot of the panelists' contact information, so we just want everybody to just utilize every resource that we have out here. We're all in this together. We're going to help each other. That's what we're here for, to reach out to our community, and that's you. So I thank everybody for joining in the conversation, and thanks to our panelists again. And we'll see you guys in January.
Yes, thank you so much. And we have updated the job form evaluation link. So please utilize that to provide your feedback, in addition to any ideas on topics that you have as well. We do read them. Thank you, Saurav Nyasha Pace. Thank you, Mr. Tremaine Graydon, for your expertise and sharing and letting us know it's okay to say no, and it's okay to do what's best for us. And we can advocate for ourselves, and we need to be teaching our children to do the same thing as well. And listening and respecting the no's, and respecting people's decisions. So we appreciate that. Those of you that are still here, have a wonderful night. I see a thank you in the chat for everyone. Thank you for another session. Have a blessed holiday season. See you in January. Thank you so much for that comment. And I will share my screen again. 1 second. Okay. And you all have a wonderful night.